Hi there, happy hump day and welcome to Wednesday. So, communication during times of change. Logically, we all know that it's important. As a leader, you know that it's your responsibility to do this and do it well. The interesting thing is, whilst we know it's important and we know that it needs to be a priority, often what I hear from people is that during times of change, the communication that needs to happen doesn't happen. And yet, the effectiveness of your communication skills, how you deliver the message and when you deliver the message, all of those factors are going to impact how people feel and their likely reactions, how they're going to respond, what they'll do and what they won't do. Interestingly, when you think about communication and effective communication, what we know through research, it's not just about the words that you use. So much of how we communicate, about 50% or more, is the non-verbal communication. And more recent research also suggests that the tone of voice that you use can have a huge impact in the content of the message, how it's landing, and how people hear what it is that you're saying. What I often see though is almost like two ends of the spectrum when it comes to leaders and how they communicate. And there'll be the people who are so scripted. They've done all the planning, they've thought about it, but it's so scripted that when the message comes across, it feels inauthentic. Or worse, they're sitting there in front of their teams and reading a message. It doesn't feel like it's coming from the heart or even from the head. It feels robotic, and therefore people disconnect from the message. And then at the opposite end, it's the people who are so unscripted, so off the cuff, that they meander, go off topic. They don't have a clear and coherent message, so people walk away from the conversation thinking, what? I've absolutely no idea what that person was just saying to me. So when you're thinking about something that you need to deliver, a communication message that you need to deliver and deliver well, you need to get the balance between being scripted and unscripted, because it is really important to be authentic. And when you don't get that message right, you don't get the medium right between what you're saying and how you're saying it, your employees are going to walk away with mixed messages. They'll end up relying on the rumor mill for information. They're not going to understand what's happening or why. They're potentially going to see you say one thing and do another thing. And all of this is going to breed and increase any level of mistrust that might already be there. And all of that has flow-on impacts to productivity and to just the general sentiment and well-being of the workplace. Many years ago, a very well-respected communicator, Abraham Lincoln, said, "When I get ready to talk, I think about and spend 2/3 of the time thinking about what it is that the audience want to hear, and 1/3 thinking about what it is that I want to say." Now, heeding that advice doesn't mean that you shy away from tough conversations, but it means that you do take the time to understand the people that you're talking with and really understand their needs. So, here's some tips to consider. Firstly, think before you speak. The best communicators are scripted. They know what it is that they want to say. They don't walk in unprepared. They know that they need to balance the content and the facts and the data with the emotionality of the language that they're using, the tone of voice, and how it's being delivered. Keep the message simple. If it's too complicated, people will tune out. You need to be really clear on what it is that you need people to walk away with understanding. Ground your messages in reality and really know what your team need to hear. If it's in the context of change, how is this going to impact them? What are they going to need to do differently and by when? Understand them, understand the impacts, and understand how they're likely to react. Don't just communicate once. Do it early and do it often. It can really also help to have principles. So guiding principles about what you're saying and when you're going to say it. Those principles help ground you and guide you so that if you're prevaricating or wondering what to do or what not to do, those principles really guide the type of communication that you want to do, how you want to be seen as a leader, because how you communicate will set the standard for how people see you and relate to you as a leader. Be consistent with what you say and what you do. If you're saying one thing and doing something else, that's sending a very clear message to your team. If you're asking for feedback as part of the communication process, act on it. And if you can't act on it, explain why. I've seen so many situations where people ask for feedback because they're told through the process they need to seek feedback from their team, but then the feedback goes nowhere. And the team's left thinking, why did I even bother wasting my time giving feedback, because nothing's happened with it. When you're communicating, listen, ask questions, be empathetic, really understand what's going on for your team. And lastly, pick the time that you communicate. Now, picking your time isn't an excuse to avoid the communication, but it is be really clear that there's a time and a place for everything. Where you communicate and when you communicate will have a huge impact on how the message is heard and how the message is felt. So, lots to consider this week. Take care, and I'll see you next week.